Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's T-Task third installment of our 12-sector collaboration series. This month, we are focusing on the business sector. So thank you to everyone who's come in today. I'm sure there'll be others joining us in a few moments based on our registration. So just want to briefly introduce myself and my team at T-Task. I'm Jennifer Jacobson. And on the call with us today, we have Lisa Mason, who will help assist me moderate today's event. Ken Plowd, Ken wave. He's going to be helping anyone who might be having technical difficulties. And Shay Montemiro. Hi, Shay, who is going to be helping us with the chat box today. So feel free to put any comments or questions in the chat box as we go along, because that will be monitored. A special warm welcome to our two guest speakers today who are lending their insight and wisdom into their experiences within their coalitions and engaging with the business sector, Cathy Hazlett from Fairfield Cares and James Olsen as well. So thank you so much for lending your voice to today's presentation. Just a couple of housekeeping notes for everyone before we jump into our presentation this morning is if everyone could just please keep themselves on mute. That helps us with any echoing or background noises, unless, of course, you're unmuting to ask a question or share along in the discussion today. Also, there's going to be a lot of slides. There's a presentation that will go out to you afterwards. So by all means, feel free to jot down questions or comments along the way, but don't feel like you need to be trying to write down slide information as we discuss them, because you will get the full deck today after the presentation. And then just for everyone knows, we are recording. We do have a YouTube channel now. So for those who can't join us today and for future purposes, today's event will be available to everyone after as well, if you'd like to go back and review anything or share it with anyone who might not be able to attend us today. Okay, so any questions before I actually launch? If not, if there's nothing in the chat box or anyone doesn't have any questions, we will get going. I'm going to be screen sharing the presentation, but we will definitely stop along the way to take Q&A and any comments. So we're going to just jump right into that. So as mentioned before, today is our third installment of our 12-sector collaboration series that T-Task is holding on a monthly basis, with this month looking at the business sector. Just a brief overview of what we're hoping to accomplish today's presentation is that we're going to walk you through the business sector as a part of the SPF model, gain knowledge of the different levels of sector involvement, learn from a shared experience from two coalition speakers that have engaged the business sector, identify some of the ways that our coalitions are engaging with the business sector, some barriers or challenges that we sometimes experience. And again, T-Task will be providing you all with several tools around the business sector and within how we normally use evidence-based strategies. And of course, as mentioned, we'll have time for discussion and Q&A along the way. So jumping right into the first piece of this is just a brief overview. Many of us work with the strategic prevention framework on a regular basis, but we do have some people on the call today that are new and might not be as familiar. So just a brief overview of the SPF. And it's really just 5 steps and 2 guiding principles that prevention planners use as an approach to understanding and addressing substance misuse in their communities. So it has 5 steps: assessment, where you're really identifying your local prevention needs; capacity, building your resources to address those needs; planning, figuring out what you're going to do in terms of strategies and events to address the needs; implementing those evidence-based programs and practices; and then evaluating how you did over time. Undergirding SPF is cultural competence and sustainability that are built into each step of the SPF. So I provide the definitions to you on cultural competence and sustainability, but we will get into those a little bit more in depth later on today. Sorry. So looking specifically at the business sector, how it's technically defined by SAMHSA and how we use it in coalition work is representatives of a business-related organization. So we include some examples here of in your community, how you may be able to do some outreach and capacity building on engaging the business sector. So the Chamber of Commerce is a really nice source because they do normally have a listing of businesses that are at least members of the chamber in your community, locally owned businesses in your community merchants. Some of our coalitions have nice relationships with their merchants in their communities, so we'll be highlighting one of those today. And then we have a related connection here is the Rotary Club. If you have one of those, there's usually some nice business networking opportunities within the Rotary Club. So we are offering 3 resource links here today for you. That is somewhat new to the presentation. So I've included a link here to the main Chamber of Commerce of Connecticut directory. So if you, after the presentation, would like to check that out, you can just click on that link. It'll take you to the directory. There'll be a drop down for your town, and you'll be able to provide access right to the Chamber of Commerce in your local community for that connection. The second link here is a way to search all of your active liquor licenses in your community or in the state if you're interested in outside of your community. So by using this tool here, you'll be able to get access to all of the merchants in your community by address, name, and how you can reach out to them. And then finally, a link to finding a Rotary Club near you as well, if you'd like to check that out too. So just 3 different ways here within this presentation for you to have some access to additional business resources in your community and within the state of Connecticut as well. So looking at some of the activities that the business sector is regularly engaged in our communities and within our coalitions, and just some ideas for those who are just starting out and thinking about how they might outreach to the business community, is providing business perspective around prevention, supporting policies with policymakers in your community or at the state level, hosting and participating in your coalition events, donating funds or services to support your coalition and development and implementation of your plans at the coalition level, encouraging their employees to serve on boards or be members of the coalition, providing that time and opportunity to engage in that work as a stakeholder to your coalition, supporting community social norms campaigns. This has been done a lot in Connecticut and a lot in our communities. It's a really easy way for businesses to engage with coalition work. Providing mentoring and career opportunities for youth in your community, providing merchant training for their employees on underage sales, and other ideas, which we are going to get into right now. So with that, I'm going to launch our first poll of the day, and I hope you'll answer. Which of the following activities does the business sector in your community participate in? And for those of those who know use Zoom, I have to stop screen share in order to launch the poll. So I'm going to launch that. Oops. What's happening here? Oh, people have already answered. Great. Did everyone see the poll? No, you didn't. Okay. Can you see it now? Okay, thank you. Thanks, Dina. I'm looking at you. So go ahead and feel free to answer. People are still answering, so I'll give them a couple more seconds. Okay. Can everyone see the results? Yes, thanks. Okay, so looks like we have the business sector engaging in some of these activities: hosting events, donating services, supporting a social norms campaign. Yep, we do see that a lot. Looks like there's some areas in our coalitions like policy making, lending a business perspective around your prevention plans, and doing some training. Great, some people did answer other. So I'm just wondering, does anyone want to unmute or share in the chat box a different idea?
I just wanted to say I didn't get to the poll quick enough, but the Norwalk area has a very strong mentoring program through the Human Service Council that most of the business community is involved in.
Oh, okay, great. So that was the mentoring. So sorry you didn't get to do it. So did you want to just speak to that quickly about that? Just to share with everyone else, it might be a good idea for others.
Yeah, so the Human Service Council, and you can talk to us about it if your community is interested. We are looking to take this on in other places, but we have over 315 mentor-mentees our coordinators go into the business communities, places like Priceline and FactSet, and we have relationships with them where they pay for their employees to leave for an hour and go to the schools to have a relationship with. It's a school-based mentoring program. So most of the activity happens in the school. Obviously during COVID, they can't do that. So we've switched over to virtual. We made a really good transition. It's pretty exciting because now the mentors are able to play games over the computer with their kids and keep them engaged in two things. And their goals are not just building a healthy relationship with a positive role model, but it's also about talking to kids about social skills to be removed from, to have different types of strategies with problem behaviors as well as chronic absenteeism. So it's a very scientific model. It is part of the national mentoring model for the state. We're the oldest school-based health center mentoring program in the state of Connecticut.
That's great, Anthony. Thanks so much for sharing. And if you wouldn't mind, Anthony, if you mind putting your email address in the chat box in case anyone else has any follow-up questions on that, that would be great. If you wouldn't mind sharing and lending any further voice to that, to anyone who might have any further questions after, based on what you said. That's awesome. Thank you. All right. Going on with the presentation. So we're just going to quickly run through the steps of the SPF with the business sector. I'm not going to read all of these slides to you, but just know that all of the information is here for you when you do receive the slide deck. So needs assessment, that first step in the SPF where we're collecting data. And specific to the business sector, we're looking at business data that's collected through various means, such as sales reports, state or local police reports, compliance checks reports, and coalitions use a variety of means to collect this information from the business sector and the other sectors that they engage in. So surveys, informational interviews, holding focus groups. So once we get through the needs assessment, we're really looking to identify our priority substances in the community, our target populations, and the associated risk factors that are really unique to each of our communities and our populations here in Connecticut. From there, you develop your programs and activities to address those needs, those risk factors, and strengthen the coalition. So we give you several examples here on engaging the business sector in that process. I did add this month a couple of different data sources for you too that might be helpful. One is the state alcohol sales reports for 2020, which I found pretty interesting to see longitudinally how the sales reports have changed, especially during the time of COVID. So that's here for you if you'd like to use that. And also we did provide a link to national e-cig sales for a couple more data sources for you. Capacity. Capacity is where we're really looking on focusing on resources and readiness of our community. Just some ideas on this slide for you on engaging the business sector is attending coalition meetings to educate their members how substance misuse impacts their businesses actually and their employees. So benefiting the business community, assisting with coalition strategic planning and how we're going to identify our prevention initiatives and collaborating with the business sector, providing marketing support to the coalition, educating coworkers and networks about the programs of the coalition at the workplace, conducting employee training, and just sharing prevention messages and social marketing campaigns. And again, just going back to shared services, donating funds, printing, meeting space, marketing materials. So we know that that's really a nice benefit that businesses are providing to several of our coalitions here in Connecticut. Planning, so once we're done with our needs assessment and our capacity building, it's really identifying, creating that plan. We know, identifying the strategies and activities that we're going to do in our community. That these are usually best fit. They address the substance and risk factors that will work in each specific community. It's where we're really looking at our measurable goals and objectives and the several strategies that we're going to do that reinforce each other, and then coming up with an evaluation plan to measure our effectiveness. At this point, it's always important to make sure we have a lot of people around the table, right, in our planning phase, that we have leadership, we have community leadership, we have our sectors, we have parents and students and youth engaged, so that when the plan is created, we really have a large, broad viewpoint and we have consensus on our plan. Implementation. This is where you're really out there engaged in the work of the coalition and delivering all of those strategies and programs. Just a few ideas here on this slide on implementation ideas on alternating days and nights and weekends so that we can have broad community attendance. Just how we're implementing a communication strategy, ensuring that all sectors and members are aware of your events through various tools. Obviously, we always keep a track of our attendance and demographics for our reporting purposes, but also for the businesses, including prevention and substance use education and policies in the workforce. Evaluation, quickly, that's where we really, after we've delivered our programs and our strategies, looking at, how did we do? Did we move the needle? Did we meet our goals? Did we meet our objectives? The evaluation phase really goes back to our needs assessment data that we collected in the beginning, and how did we move the needle or not. It's really a nice time where we say, where were we successful? What worked well? Where were we able to move the needle? And also a great time to say where were we not as successful as we had hoped to be, why that may be, and then alternating some of our ideas and activities to move those needles even further as well. Sustainability and cultural competency, I mentioned earlier in the presentation. I won't read these, but just wanted to provide you with those definitions here on the slide. Looking a little bit more at cultural competency with the business sector specifically, how the business sector can contribute to the role of cultural competency within your organization. It's really allowing the business sector, when they provide data or information to the coalition in each of the phases, is digging deeper into their data, looking for hidden and underserved populations, looking at how the demographics of your population in your community or in the businesses have changed over time. Making sure we're holding those focus groups and interviews with businesses, and that we have a broad range of businesses, small businesses, big, large businesses, minority owned businesses, so that we're really getting a broad view of the businesses within our community. And then just, are we making our materials available in multiple languages? So there's going to be a resource at the end of the presentation about building cultural competency across the SPF that we will provide to you later in the presentation at the end. Sustainability. So sustainability is the capacity of a community to produce and maintain positive prevention outcomes over time. So when we think about the business community and the business sector, it's describing how the business sector within your sustainability plan contributes to the sustainability of your organization. So some ideas on here on this slide is, how does the business sector working toward owning some of your prevention initiatives over time? What training or technical assistance can you or TTask provide to the business sector? What resources they might need to engage further with prevention work and being a part of your coalition? Identifying the business champions in your community that can lead and generate enthusiasm for other businesses. And recognizing those businesses that really have been a great partner to us, who have advocated for policy, and recognizing them within the community for their efforts that they've engaged in. And again, we're going to provide you with another tool, how the SPF contributes to sustainability, at the end of the presentation. So with that, I'm going to quickly stop screen share before we go on to our next part of today's event, which is our speakers. But just to check in with Shay, if there was anything in the chat box, Shay, for questions or comments that we should talk to. Was there anything, Shay? No, Lisa, you're not saying anything?
We had a couple comments, mostly from, so we had a comment from Erica, and she a little bit ago said that the chamber representatives attended coalition meetings, and they partner with them to bring education such as vaping to the business sector. So I don't know if you want to speak a little bit about that, Erica, or anything?
I would love if she would.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. I was just saying that we have a chamber representative that attends our meetings monthly, just to keep, you know, up to date, and we partner together and share information and resources. And then we've also worked with them and several other community members to bring vaping prevention education to the business sector, just to show, you know, signs and symptoms of use, what to look for, some paraphernalia often used, and how the business community can really share that, you know, that health message with their employees, and then their employees can bring that back to their families. So that was scheduled as part of their meetings that were already in place, their regularly scheduled monthly meetings. But from what I heard, it was a success, and they were very appreciative of that information.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing, Erica.
No problem. Thanks.
It's like Doreen also put in the chat box that a local business donates a weekly space for their family and friend support group, and has been doing so for the past 5 years and ongoing. Did you want to kind of speak about that too, Doreen?
Sure. Our organization is Lift Confidential. We're recovery and intervention consulting services, and we run a friends and family support group, and mostly parents attend, and it's an ongoing weekly group. We now are Zooming, and we have been since all of this pandemic hit. And this organization has given us this amazing space that we can utilize in any way, shape, or form we like. So we've had some events going on there, and some Narcan trainings, and those types of things, guest speakers, and, you know, invited outside of, I mean, everybody's invited. It's a free meeting, whether you're a client or not. And they've been very gracious and accommodating, and we have a great relationship, and we're so appreciative of that space. So.
That's awesome. It's good to have like the local businesses engage more in the community. Does anybody else have any other like stories that they want to share before we go to our speakers?
I'm going to ask that during our speaker time, while you're paying attention to them, if anyone would like to think of other ideas that they've partnered with businesses in any way. So at the end of our speakers, if anyone can share at the end of that time, that would be great, because I think it's really helpful for everyone throughout the state that's on this call to really get some ideas on ways that they can engage the business sector that they might not currently be doing. So just some food for thought while we listen to our fabulous speakers. And with that, I'm going to start with Cathy Hazlett. Hi, Cathy.
Good morning. Hi. All right. Do you want to share screen? Should I just?
Yeah, you have it, right? You have your slides?
I've got my slides.
Okay, so I'm going to turn this over to Cathy. She's from Fairfield Cares. And thanks so much, Cathy, for being here. You are on.
All righty. Let me go to my slides and slideshow. Okay. Hold on, let me minimize the pictures over here. All right, I was excited to hear what Erica was saying about how they engage their business community. At Fairfield Cares, we've been doing a lot of capacity building this year. This is my first year. I've only been in the position of coalition coordinator for Fairfield Cares since mid-August. And so we've been building the coalition, inviting new members, and I'm very excited that we just recently recruited our Chamber of Commerce Executive Director, who is helping us with other phases of our coalition. We're designing a new mission statement and vision statement, so she's involved in that. And this initiative that I'm going to talk to you about was not originated by Fairfield Cares. And before I go even further, let me explain. Positive Directions is the organization that I work for, who funds my position and is the fiscal agent for our CSE grant for the Fairfield Cares Coalition. So that is the relationship between Fairfield Cares and Positive Directions. And the coalition is very thankful for Positive Directions to take on that role for the coalition. The original group of coalitions that came together who came up with this idea of let's mention prevention. And I love that name. I love that title because it can fit for anything, right? It was brought together by the coalitions of Durham, Middlefield, Milford, Southington, Stratford, Trumbull, and Wolcott. And Fairfield Cares is so appreciative of being able to work with them and share their creative prowess to do effective social marketing in our community. Glenn Laudenslager, and I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly, is the president of Charge Ahead Marketing, who was the creative backbone behind the marketing materials that were created out of this group initiative. And I just want to quickly say that any time that a group of coalitions can come together and work as opposed to individual coalitions kind of doing their own thing, I think that's always a positive thing. And it also brings economies of scale. So if you haven't allocated all your LPC money that's focused on vaping, there is a mention prevention initiative around vaping. So please be in touch with any of those original coalitions to find out more about that. So we bought a couple of the materials, not all the materials that were developed through that group of coalitions. We thought that this fit very nicely into some of our goals with our CSE grant. We are forever trying to decrease the percentage of youth who are drinking in the past 30 days, always wanting to increase parental knowledge on the effects of alcohol on the adolescent brain, increasing knowledge of social host laws, and probably in addition to decreasing youth use, that goal of trying to increase perception of harm is perhaps the most challenging of all our goals. And we have a few more goals for our grant other than these, but these are the ones that specifically fit with the Mention Prevention Initiative. So because the initiative was targeted to work with the alcohol retail sector, we chose to work with our 19 package stores in Fairfield. And fortunate for us, we have two champions in the retail alcohol sector, Patrick Meneloni of Harry's Wine and Liquor Market and Maureen Abrahamson of Mo's Wine and Spirits. And Maureen, or Mo, was part of our coalition once upon a time, several years ago. So I am working very hard to try to get her back involved in our coalition because alcohol still remains the #1 substance that our youth chooses to use. It's really important that we have someone from the retail sector involved in our coalition. And just to reiterate what Jen just said about including these sectors into our coalition in ways that they can be part of our strategic planning as well as just planning social marketing campaigns. So we had conversations with both Patrick and Mo about this initiative, and both of them reached out to the other package stores in our community to alert them that someone from Fairfield Cares will be stopping by with some materials. Please welcome them, listen to them. And so that was very helpful. So myself and another coalition member essentially did a cold call, just went to these other 17 stores. And it was a wonderful opportunity to have a conversation about Fairfield Cares, to really put a person behind the coalition most of the time I was educating them on who the coalition is, what we are all about, what we focus on. And so that was probably one of the big wins of doing this initiative. I brought data with me as well as the materials, and I'll go over that in just a moment. So here's the poster, and I apologize. This is my low-tech prowess here. Basically took a picture of the poster and then put it in my PowerPoint, but I'll read this to you. Each store got 2 of these posters, and these posters are actually targeted to the employees of the store. They're roughly, I'd say, 11 inches wide by maybe 20 inches long, something like that. And they say, let's #mention prevention. As a retail location for alcohol sales, you are a key part of prevention in our community. The earlier that kids use alcohol, the more likely they are to have problems with it later in life. That's why prevention is so important. Use these helpful tips to make sure that you do all you can to prevent minors from having access to alcohol. ID checks are still required for all stores, and we provide some tips there. Ensure safety while you check IDs. And some of these tips I thought were pretty unique, so I'm going to read them. Use required personal protective equipment to interact with people and handle IDs. Ask customers to briefly lower their masks to compare with the ID photo. For pickup and takeout orders, check IDs for all parties, and be aware of the presence of minors at delivery locations. So this poster is directly linked to the COVID times that we are living with. If something feels unsafe, do not make the sale. And reminding employees, you don't make a sale if someone's visibly intoxicated, under the age of 21, or buying alcohol for someone under the age of 21. And then we thank them. So we asked owners to please put these up actually by the cash register as well as in their back rooms for their employees, so that anyone underage who might be tempted to try to purchase alcohol would see this sign and realize this store takes checking IDs seriously. So we're pleased that that's actually happened. Then the second part of this initiative that we utilized were the consumer cards that were given to each consumer when they made a purchase. And these cards are roughly 11 inches long by 4 inches wide. And on the front, it says, we need your help to make sure the contents of this purchase do not get into the hands of minors. Do not provide alcohol to kids and teens. Store alcohol safely to reduce visibility and access. You can use a locked or hard to reach cabinet. Talk often with your kids about the risks of drinking. What parents say and the actions they model play a major role in how kids and teens feel about drinking. Know the social host laws in Connecticut. It is against the law to permit any minor to possess alcohol. This includes on any private property. You can receive up to 1 year in jail and a $2,000 fine. And then the back of the card reads, did you know? Youth start drinking before the age of 15 are 4 more times more likely to develop alcohol dependence later in life. Data shows that underage alcohol use is linked to greater risk of aggression, suicide, and violence, poor decisions about other risky behaviors, problems with cognition and learning, substance use disorders later in life. So this is just a nifty little way of educating parents directly about the risks of providing alcohol or making alcohol available to their children. This is just some of the data that I shared with the store owners. And I was somewhat surprised that they were surprised how of the percentage of teens using alcohol. I mean, in their minds, it was higher than they expected. And I think that speaks to the fact that I've been working in substance misuse for a long time. So I was pleased that they were surprised in some respects. So it gave me an opportunity to really engage them in a conversation about the role they play in the prevention of youth use of alcohol, and pointed out to them that this, do not think that there is much risk. So this percentage should be way lower than the roughly 20% of kids who don't seem to think that binge drinking is a problem, isn't harmful. So we've got a lot of work to do in this area. But the bottom part was to show, where are kids accessing alcohol? And check this out, 50% are getting alcohol, teens are getting alcohol from their home with parent permission. So as a coalition, that tells us we have a lot of education to do with our parents. And then 37% at a friend's house, at a party without an adult present, and then at a party with an adult present knowing that there is drinking happening. So we have a lot of education to do. But again, it points out the role that the retail community plays with our prevention efforts. So specifically, looking at our retail package stores as partners, alcohol retailers are now more aware of the link between selling alcohol and youth use of alcohol. And they now have added incentive to check IDs. We now have, Fairfield Cares now has a stronger connection to the alcohol retailers and reinforces the perception of our retailers as very important partners in our youth alcohol use prevention initiatives. And then alcohol retailers become an important communication vehicle to get the prevention message out. So it's just another way. So it's not just through social media, it's provided us with another way of getting prevention messages to parents when it's coming directly from the retailer. Next steps. So this is actually happening this week. We're revisiting the stores tomorrow to restock with those consumer cards. And when the other coalition member and I do that, we're going to take a few pictures. We're planning to do a press release to include a few pictures of store owners and the wonderful cooperation we've received from them in this youth alcohol prevention initiative. It'll also give us an opportunity to collect complete information so that we can include those store owners in our coalition distribution information list and really try to encourage them to become more involved, as well as for us to reach out to them when it feels like this is something we ought to do. So we're very excited about what started as, I think, a wonderful relationship with our alcohol retailers. And I think I missed a slide there, but this was all about capacity building. This was a huge capacity building initiative for us. And I think the start of something really nice with our alcohol retailers in our community. So there's my contact information if anybody wants to follow up. And I will now stop sharing my screen. There you go. All right.
Thank you. Great job, Cathy. Thanks so much. You made it.
You bet. You bet.
Does anyone have any questions or quick feedback for Cathy that you might have right now? Not sure if there was anything in the chat box. If not, we can move on to James. James, I don't see you. Where's James?
I'm here.
Oh, okay. Hi, James. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Welcome. Thank you so much. Are you ready to go?
Ready to go.
Okay, then you are on. James, go ahead.
All right. Good morning, everybody. My name is James Olson. I'm the prevention coordinator for the East Hampton Prevention Partnership. I've been in this position for almost 4 years now. We just completed the PFS grant, so we are waiting on DFC right now. But get into the presentation, Lisa approached me and asked if I would like to, present on my business relationships. And I told her, I don't know if I'm the right person for you. because my main business connection is a very unique one, I think, where the business actually reached out to me. So I have a little presentation and I'll get into that. All right. So it started with an email, and that's the email, the exact quote from the email on the bottom. Wanted to show some support by posting a little info on the Chatham Historical Society. If you have anything you would like to add to this page, let me know. So I went to the page, checked it out. The Chatham Historical Society, Chatham is a subset of East Hampton, just to give everybody some context. And went, did some scrolling, our mission statement, put some upcoming events for us, some of the programs that we were running, information about our medication drop box. Said, wow, that's fantastic, because we currently don't have a website. For reasons I won't get into, I am not allowed to with the town. There was some issues with non-town entities having town affiliated websites. So technically the coalition is not an official town board, but the coalition is funded. The town is the fiduciary. So I replied, said, wow, that's fantastic. Give me some more information about what you do. So found out that this gentleman has been working in the marketing graphics field for a very long time now. And he had started his own organization called Belltown Graphics. Awesome, that's part of our town. I am going to need an infograph coming up, so let's work together. So he was all for it. He wanted to give back to the community. It was an area that I needed help in at that time. So let's go for it. He really started to engulf himself in what the coalition was, what it stood for. So I said, let's meet at the coffee shop, again, involving local business. So Eco is our local coffee shop in town, right in the center of town. If any of you have ever been to East Hampton, there's not many reasons to be here, but if you have, the downtown area is the prime business area. You could walk to all of the little shops and they're all small local businesses. So he really just fit into the strategic prevention framework in every way possible. He wanted to know more about what we were doing and how we got there. So I provided him with our Search Institute data. He researched that. He started attending meetings. He wanted to meet with the youth committee to be able to create campaigns, using the members as resources. So again, listening to our coalition members, listening to the youth committee. And then his strong suit, obviously, the creation of the campaigns as far as implementation goes. And then he always wanted feedback. The first campaign that I'll show next, as soon as we put it up, he wanted to know how it went. It was in the schools, so he wanted to hear from the kids. What are they saying? Are the posters getting torn down? Are they safe? Do I have to create more? So he was active in every single part of the cycle. And then as far as cultural competence goes, he lives in town, he works in town, he knows how it works. And sustainability, messaging, as far as the messaging goes, it could be reused. And we typically don't put a date on anything unless it's a specific event. If it's a campaign, we're not dating it just so we could reuse it the next year if we want to. So our first campaign, we worked with the students. It was called the Prom Promise campaign. So we created a poster and social media campaign for students in the school and then adults on social media. The ones on the left and right obviously are for the students. The one in the center here is for the parents. So we just blasted these out. I think the one in the middle had over like 3,000 views on Facebook, which for a town of 13,000 people was pretty significant for us. But we got some really good feedback from the students because he was great at listening to what they wanted to create. And again, we kind of want to stay away from the red. I know a lot of people do, but the black and red are our colors, so it fit our color scheme, not necessarily the negative. So that's why we highlighted the prom. So the next thing we worked on the infographic for the PFS grant. That was one of our deliverables. We had a really simple one to do, but then I wanted to really highlight some of the activities that we had done, our successes, our data, who we are, what we do, and be able to present it at events. Just a snapshot of the coalition and some of our major accomplishments and things like that. So highlighting our medication drop box, our goals, and contact information, of course. So he made this nice and pretty, a lot better than I could come up with. Could definitely use some updating at this point, but at the time, this was brand new. And then he has started working with another company since then, and we have created an online 10-minute teen alcohol use e-learning curriculum. So it is narrated, you click through, at the end there's a 10-question survey. It's a pass-fail survey. The students can retake it if needed, and it will give resources back to the actual e-learning course. So we have that ready to go for the high school. And then looking forward, he will not be our sector representative if hopefully we get the Drug-Free Communities grant. But our sector representative is an owner of an art studio that is in that center of town. So she has already done programs with Parks and Rec. She is a member of the Board of Ed. So she has a very good relationship with the town, with youth in the community. She has a child of her own and has a really large focus on mental health. So is really looking forward to working with us and has her fingers crossed that we will also get the Drug-Free Communities grant. So I know I blew through that really quickly. I don't know if anybody has any questions. I think I saw some, but I will stop sharing.
I'm wondering, James, could you speak to, I mean, those look amazing. Those are really, I loved the work that you guys collaborated on, especially the pieces that were created in collaboration with your youth committee. I was wondering if you could speak to a little bit about what the benefit to the company was in engaging in the work. Was, you know, obviously the coalition received a lot of benefit from this collaboration, but could you speak to how this elevated the business itself within your community?
So his main, I guess, angle was really to just build his local name recognition. Working with the Historical Society, he was kind of just looking at local entities that didn't have a huge presence that he thought he could help, and then in the long run, it would help him. So he created a logo for the school system. He worked with the Historical Society, who really didn't have an online presence. That's why he reached out to us, because we really don't have, other than Facebook, we really don't have much of an online presence. So he wanted to get his local name recognition out there, just, yeah, to build his own business, and was really doing this at cost. He wasn't, you know, trying to make money off of it. He wanted to get his name out there and feel like he was giving back to the community at the same time.
James, so it was a way for him to like build his portfolio of different projects and different clients. So
yes, exactly. Because a lot of he had worked for a larger marketing company. So anything that he had worked on, they had the rights to it. So he really couldn't even show off any of his previous creations. So yeah, exactly. It was a way for him to build his portfolio and get his name out there.
Thank you.
As an individual, not just someone who was under the umbrella of a company.
And when you talk about the art owner, is that the group that you've worked with in the past? The art studio, is that the group you've worked with where you guys have collaborated on, what do you call it? Theater projects around substance use and mental health?
Nope. So this is more of a smaller, like individual class type studio. The other one, this is for the whole community. The other one is primarily youth focused.
Yes.
So they are actually going to be our other youth serving organization if we get the Drug Free Communities grant. This one will be our business sector representative.
Super.
They're a nonprofit, the
Yep.
other entity.
Yes. Okay, great.
So,
Thank
yeah,
you.
for a very small town, we have a large collection of the arts. We have 3 separate theater groups. We have the huge youth nonprofit art studio. We have that art studio. Every single school has their own theater program. So it's definitely a very large part of this community. So we thought going and, reaching out to it and being well connected to it will help us in the long run as well.
And that also helps in terms of cultural competency, in terms of that's an important value to your community and a way to connect with families as well.
Yep.
So not only looking at what are the resources in my community, but that reflects what's important to my community as well.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you.
I don't know if anybody else has any other questions. I'm sending my email.
I see a lot of people in the chat box are saying that there was a good job on the infographic. A couple of people were wondering if you'd be willing to share your infographic via email.
Yeah, absolutely.
When we follow up after today's and we send you the presentation, we'd be happy, if it's okay with Cathy and James, to include their email information as well, additionally to what's in this chat box, so that if it's that's okay with James and Cathy, so that people can reach out directly and engage in further conversation on the initiatives that they've been able to work with the business sector or any of their materials from today, because it seems that there's a lot of interest in what you guys have been able to do, and kudos to you both for these initiatives, and to the businesses as well for engaging with us in this really important work, because we know that the businesses are so diverse in Connecticut and in each of our communities that they could really just lend so much perspective and assistance to the work that we're all working on together collaboratively. So thank you so much. I hope that these 2 examples provide for everyone, one story that really went out and we're able to reach out to the business sector and create some really meaningful opportunities to get messaging out. And then one where the business sector contacted the coalition and we're able to engage in a partnership that just as much so benefited the community there as well. So if there's anyone else at this point that briefly has 1 or 2 stories have how they would like to share with anything from the business sector before we move on to the next section, we could take a little bit of time to do that now.
I think there's a question for James
Okay.
before we move on. Actually, Mark is asking, has the graphic designer who shows his work on the coalition to other business owners, has he led any additional business leads for the coalition?
I don't think so. I think it's just really helped with the recognition within the schools. I don't think any business specific, but I think it's definitely helped. Like when we created this campaign in the school, we had a lot of positive feedback and we had more students that wanted to be involved because they did like the campaign. But as far as businesses, not that I could think of, or not that I know of. There may have been for him, but I am not aware.
Great. Okay. Thank you both again, and we'll be sure to send out all that information to everyone after today. So we're going to move on to just the next part of our presentation today that really does dig a little bit deeper into levels of involvement and engaging the business sector. So I'm going to go back to my presentation, if that's okay. Did that. So I'm not going to read, don't get scared, this slide to you all. Some of you have seen it before if you were here for our previous 2, but just for our new people here today, really when we talk about sector levels of involvement, we're talking about no involvement, networking, cooperation, coordination, and collaboration as the continuum that we see within organizations. So you can read these definitions at your leisure, but they do somewhat speak to themselves, where there's no involvement. The sector's just not involved in working together. Networking is where you might share some information with each other, but not working together in any real capacity. Cooperation is where you might begin to support each other's work, but again, it's somewhat in a siloed sense that we'll support each other, but we're still not working together towards mutually understood goals or endeavors. Coordination is where you are starting to see that work elevate itself a little bit between groups and stakeholders, where you are now starting to plan events, working on committees together or community boards. You're starting to implement some programs and services together, kind of a partnership there. But collaboration takes it to what we feel is the highest level of involvement, where organizations are working together, where you really do have some agreements. You're working towards shared missions, shared values, shared goals. You recognizing that your outcomes are really overlapping. There might be formal agreements, maybe not necessarily, like memorandums of understanding, contracts or agreements. Doesn't necessarily have to have that, but it really, as you can see, kind of takes it to that next level where you're focusing your efforts together, pooling your resources, your human resources, your fiscal resources. So with that, with those kind of definitions in mind, we're going to take our next poll, if that's okay. So if you think about the question, what level of involvement would you place the business sector in your prevention work? So I'll launch that poll. Hopefully everyone can see that. Thanks, Ken. Okay, here are our results. So it looks like everyone is, I mean, at least half of us are at a moderate level of cooperation with the business sector. So that's nice to see. Some feel that they're in the coordination phase, and interesting, we have no one who feels that they are in the collaborative role at this point, and some that have no involvement whatsoever. So hopefully with our shared experience, you've learned some ideas on how to just start that conversation. But we are going to go through some information on the next slides on ideas in addition to what we've already heard today. So I will go on to that. So some of that we, based on that poll, oh, sorry guys, sorry. We talk about barriers to engagement. So what are some of the challenges or barriers to engagement with the business sector that you've experienced? So some of the common barriers that people have expressed and that we've experienced in our own work is lack of business participation in the past. So maybe there just hasn't been business involvement before, and we're not too sure about how to go out and engage the business sector in the coalition work. Dominance by maybe prevention professionals within the coalition, availability of members of the business sector to participate, just having the time during the day or when you might be having your meetings or events, poor links to the sector, minimal organizational capacity to go out and engage the sector, funding, or creating and sustaining some leadership within the group. So just quickly to gauge a sense of where everyone's at, if we think about our next poll question, it's just if you think about barriers to engagement with the business sector in your world and in your organization, if you had to look at some of these questions, what are some of the common barriers to engagement with the business sector that you've experienced? So we'll have everyone take a quick gauge on that experience. Can everyone see the poll? Is that up? Okay, thanks, Ken. Okay. here are the results. So it seems a predominant barrier that people have experienced is just lack of business participation in the past. So I'm kind of happy we chose business to be our third sector, because I feel like we do have time now within this year anyway to start those conversations as we are working on sustainability or applying for grants. So hopefully this today will be helpful to those who've experienced that. Also just poor links to the business sector. So yeah, funding a little bit, but really it seems to be access to the sector itself. All right. So on our next slides, we're going to share some ideas on engaging the business sector. And again, it's a lot of content on one slide. We'll send it out. I'm not going to read this all to you, but we do provide 2 columns here, kind of a starter kit. If you're not working within the business sector at all, we give some ideas here on how to just start those conversations, from creating a business flyer, an interest form, to maybe engaging in an outreach that Cathy spoke of during her presentation, inviting businesses or employees to attend or speak at some of your events. Really going out and having some of those focus groups and how you can engage with them further. And then for those who are already kind of working with the businesses in a little bit, but would like to increase that engagement, we give you some ideas here on further engaging the business sector in your coalition world. And it really is just incorporating them into the planning process, inviting them to really be hosts and speak. And sharing those ideas. I think it's really important that we've spoken to today on how becoming a part of the coalition and engaging in that work themselves actually can help the businesses themselves, and that it's a mutual relationship that benefits them as much as it does the coalition. So I have one more poll for you, and that's if you could think about, based on some of the information here and some of these ideas, which do you think after today that you could kind of go out and start doing? That you may not have done already. So that's going to be our last poll for today. Sorry about that. All right, here you go. I'll give you guys a little bit more time because it's a little bit longer to read. Okay. Everyone can see the results, I hope. Yes. All right. So it looks like, 40, 50, 60% of people on here today have some ideas on how they can walk away with. Looks like extending some invitations, doing that reach out. I did some of that even here at TTAS this week to kind of potential new state level partners. And even at this level, we're always looking at ideas on how to build our capacity and do reach out. So that's great. It looks like those invitation extensions might be a good way for people to feel. Just keeping everyone informed, helping them, providing resources to them on how they can incorporate prevention messages into their workplace. Great. So holding focus groups. So great. It seems like some of these ideas are going to be helpful to people along the way. All right. So before I move on to the next section, Shay, I'm not really sure if there was any questions, or I'm happy to open the floor too. If anyone has any questions on any barriers, challenges, looking for some ideas on how you might want to overcome them while we have all these people on the call, open to the floor, or Shay, if there was anything in the chat box on that piece of levels of involvement or engagement.
I think we can go ahead and open the floor, any kinds of comments or anything that anybody would like to share. There's not really any questions that we need to have answered or talked about now. So I think we can open the floor.
Okay, all right. Anyone else have any suggestions or ideas on barriers or business? Lisa, anything that you wanted? I think did you have anything to share? I thought you were going to speak. Lisa, no?
Yes.
Okay, that's okay.
One is one coalition I know had a business member who refinished basements. That was his job. And you may think, what's the connection? I think if I remember correctly, he had been impacted by another person's substance use. So a family member had been impacted. So that can be a way that people get connected to organizations. A second thing is asking businesses, local businesses that coalitions might know, if they might be willing to sponsor, contribute to a project. One town has an assets-based calendar that they share with their school system, and they ask businesses if they would, contribute $200 towards the calendar, and they list all the businesses on the calendar. Other coalitions have done that with billboards, and then they list the business name who helped contribute to the billboard on the billboard. So that's another idea. Another one is just thanking the businesses that help, in the newspaper or social media, presentations to Rotary clubs or other civic groups, because often those are a way to connect with businesses. They're often there because they care about their community. So especially sharing information, not only on what you're doing, but like youth data, so they know what's going on with kids in their town. Presentations to Chamber of Commerce. I know one coalition that has a Chamber of Commerce person who sits on the coalition besides Middletown. So she serves as a way to get information back and forth. And one thing that's really important is asking coalition members who they know. What are some businesses that they work with, or businesses that they have personal connections with, and starting with some of those. The other thing that we've talked about under like social marketing is, when we approach like pizza places for stickers, stickers on pizza boxes, or local coffee shops that we distribute like the coffee cup sleeves to, following up with them, after that initial, asking them if they want more information about the coalition, like what Cathy's doing, Cathy Hazlett and Fairfield, following up after that initial. So just some ways that other coalitions have helped out. And I'd love to hear what other folks are doing.
So Jessica has a question. She says, does anyone have any ideas to share about engaging businesses in donating?
Donating time, donating space, donating funds. I'm not sure if Jessica had a specific mind, but does anyone have any ideas to share with Jessica?
I think sometimes the first time it can be a little challenging doing the ask, but often what happens if you do the ask, you get a positive, you recognize them in the community so people can see that they're a good citizen. Then it becomes easier the next time because they're like, oh, I'm getting some recognition out of this as well. So it's benefiting me. I know with the calendar, the assets calendar, they usually have a waiting list because they've been doing this for several years now. So they have a waiting list of people who want to donate to this calendar.
I mean, I'll share an idea. When I was a coordinator before, it was really just a direct ask. And, we were going to work on X project, asking, people on the coalition for people they may know in the field of what we were looking for, and just reaching out. And I do feel like as James was talking about, so many of our people in coalition work wear so many hats in our communities. They may be a coalition member, they may be a parent, they may be on a board, so that those connections, the bigger world becomes smaller. And that was successful for me, and just reaching out and asking if they'd be willing to donate time really was the ask, time and their professional capacity, and really more than happy to do so. And then of course, when we go out as a coalition, we elevate that business as our partner and as a steward in our community towards prevention efforts. And that just builds their brand and builds their capacity as a business. So I think to Mark's point, I think he talked about how benefits to the business. That's Erica. Sorry, I'm trying to read the chat box and talk at the same time. But I think the takeaway, one of the things is we sometimes think of how each sector is important to the coalition work, but it is also how the coalition work is important to the sector. So that's one idea, if that's helpful.
And one way, sometimes we have to come up with alternatives when we want to implement a strategy. Like in Lime Old Lime, they have no billboards. So they went to their garbage hauler and contacted them and asked if they would be willing to put like a billboard on the side of the trucks, the garbage trucks, and they agreed to. And so that's an example of getting a business involved and then thanking that business. And after that initial connection or partnership, then, you've opened the door so you can approach them for some other things as well.
All right. So you kind of touched on this a little bit, Jen. So Erica asks, is there already a list of benefits for the business community to join a coalition? For example, if we created a flyer that went out to all businesses, what are some examples we can include?
I'm not aware of a list, but I think that would be a great project for us to work on.
Yep.
To create a list, and we could connect with different coalitions and ask them, what are some examples, that you have used, and, what are some benefits? I know Ken, and I don't know if you want to talk any more about this, Ken, but one business he reached out to was AAA. And a AAA person came to some coalition meetings because of the mutual interest in youth and driving. So there's another example of a business, driving schools, if there are any in your town. So thinking also about what are some mutual goals that we might have.
Okay.
But I think that'd be a great project, Erica, for us to work on. And we'd love to follow up with folks and say, what are some examples of business engagement that you could share with other folks, as well as, what did they get out of it? And we could compile a list and share it with folks. I'd be happy to work on that.
Okay. So now we're getting into the tools and resources part of the presentation. So every time we do one of these, we want to make sure that we're mentioning our partners, our regional behavioral health action organizations. Here on this slide, we provide for you the 5 RBHAOs in Connecticut in the map. So in case you're unaware of where your community may lay, and then we provide each logo and a link. If you click on each of these logos, that will take you right to their website, where you will be able to find other prevention resources and opportunities with our RBHAO's partners. Next, this is for those of you who have engaged in any coalition collaboration tools, or have participated in the vitality assessment tool in the past as a coalition. This is just a slide, if you'd like to use, that you can print out easily from the presentation and use at maybe a leadership meeting or at the next one of your coalition meetings to gauge the members' thinking around where they think that either this sector or any of the sectors fit in your coalition, and use it as a coalition, capacity building data source for yourselves. Next is just that first chart that we promised you earlier in the presentation. This is just the opportunities to integrate cultural competence across the SPF. So there are ideas in each step here on how we can build a more inclusive coalition and community, and building cultural competency into our work. This is the SPF, how that contributes to sustainability. So ideas here on this chart on how we build sustainability across the SPF as well. And then this one I'm kind of excited about. For this sector today, which we will send to you so you can print this out. We did create a business sector checklist. And this is something, I know it's hard to read on this screen, so I will try and blow it up a little bit for you. But what it does is provide you as coalition members or coordinators, or also as businesses, so both can use this checklist on ideas and ways to engage this business sector further. Let's see if I can move this over. Wow, I'm doing this on the fly and it's working. Just trying to blow this up a little bit. We created this checklist and it divides business activities into different areas. So ideas around influencing policy, whether in your community or at the state level, participating in environmental strategies, so ideas on how the business sector can fit into that area, supporting your coalition efforts, educating their networks and employees. And this has to do with employee training and how this can benefit their employees and therefore their business. Promoting community education. So this is about hosting events and speakers and supporting social norms campaigns, and then strengthening individual knowledge and skills. So adopting a school, youth mentoring here, diversity training for our employees. So this is a just an action checklist for you, a new tool. This will be available on our website under our tools section once this is over and posted. We'll also send it to you after today's meeting. So hopefully this will be a new tool that everyone can utilize as a conversation starter or an idea generator for you. Again, we take each of the evidence-based strategies that many of our coalitions are involved in: youth engagement, law enforcement, social norms, coalition capacity building, and provide some more ideas on engaging the business sector. So this is in the slide deck for you as well. And that is pretty much it. On the last slide here, I just want to point out a few things. So on top, you'll see that we provide our website, preventiontrainingcenter.org. We will upload these slide deck to the presentation as well as emailing it out to you. And there are obviously other tools and resources available on our website for you. Then the next thing is we have the feedback link here. And I think Shay is going to put this link into the chat box for you all. We'll also email it out, but it would just be great if everyone could take, it's literally not even a minute, to fill out the SurveyMonkey feedback on today's session, what you got out of it, so that as we move forward with each session, we can try to improve upon them for you. And then I'm going to hand it over to Ken for a second so he can talk about some upcoming dates that you might want to share.
Thanks, Jen.
Sure.
So we have two upcoming dates. The next installment of the T-Task 12 Sector series will be on law enforcement, and that will be on January 12th from 10 to 11:30. There will be a flyer, sent out about 2 weeks prior to this event. And then another event coming up is on December 15th, and that is the alcohol direct-to-consumer panel discussion, and that will be at 9:30 to 11 a.m. GPP has circulated a register flyer for that, but I think Shay just put it up in the chat box as well.
Lisa, did you want to tell everybody a little bit more about the DTC event, just to give them an idea of what that's all about and why we're doing that?
Sure. Basically, and it's got a fancier name, the alcohol dangers, delivery dangers. The idea is that with COVID, the state has expanded some regulations around alcohol delivery and alcohol access, and with curbside pickup and delivery to people's homes. So we are bringing in a speaker from the Liquor Law Enforcement Association, Carrie Christophus, and she will be speaking. She's spoken at the National Prevention Network conference in August, and also for the New England Prevention Technology Transfer Center. So she'll be speaking on law enforcement issues and regulation. And we also have Matthew Stemple, who is a North Carolina state police officer who does liquor control. So he'll be talking about some pilot minor in compliance checks that they do with home delivery. He'll be reporting on that. We also have some local people. One of the RBHAO directors, Pam Monty. We have a school resource officer from Naugatuck High School. And we also have a gentleman, I'm forgetting his name, from liquor control at the Department of Consumer Protection, Richard, and he will be coming as well. So we'll have those five folks. And the idea behind this workshop is just to raise awareness that this is an issue in Connecticut, that laws and regulations have changed. And this is something new for us to be thinking about when it comes to youth accessing alcohol. And what are some other folks doing? What are some things to be concerned about? Raise the issue both with coalition folks, with law enforcement. And if you want to register, we've posted a link, I believe, and or you can go right to either our social media, or you can go right to Governor's Prevention Partnership website under their trainings. They have it listed there as well. So we're working with them together. We're collaborating on this. We're up high in that levels of collaboration scale there, jointly sponsoring and working together to plan. So hopefully we'll see you. We'll see you folks at that.
And just before everyone signs off, I just wanted to remind everyone who might be new today that wasn't in our previous two, that the previous two presentations on youth in schools is available on YouTube. So if you missed either of those are available to everyone. And then lastly, TTAS does have e-tips training licenses available for our coalitions. So if anyone is interested in doing any merchant e-tips training, feel free to reach out to any one of us and we can just provide you with more information on how you may be able to access the licenses that we do have available for you all, okay?
And I just want to make sure people know what e-tips is.
Oh.
It's the tips training, but it's virtual. It's on demand. So you would get a license that would allow you to take that. And once you finish it, I believe you get a certificate for it. So that's something that we have purchased those licenses. So if you want to share those licenses with local alcohol vendors, that's something we can provide you with, the licenses.
All right. So unless there's any last minute comments or questions, we are going to wrap up for today. Is there anything else that anyone has to say before we sign off for the day? All right, well, thank you so much to Cathy and James for presenting today and today's sector presentation. Thank you all for coming and joining for us for our third series. We'll hope that you will all join us in January. We wish everyone, if we don't see you until then, a very happy holiday, healthy season. And thanks, it's just great to see everyone every month. I'm actually just loving that we have this reason to come together now. So be well, and we hope to see you all in January. We will follow up with all of these materials to you. But if anytime you need anything from us, please feel free to reach out anytime. Have a great rest of your day, everyone. Thanks for coming.